The Ancient Forest, written by Stephen King. The forest was old, ancient. It had stood for centuries, witnessing the passage of time, the rise and fall of civilizations, and the secrets of the earth. Trees clawed at the sky, their branches gnarled fingers against the fading light. They seemed to reach out as if trying to grasp the last remnants of daylight before the darkness consumed everything. The air hung heavy, thick with the smell of damp earth and decay. The scent was almost palpable, a mix of rotting leaves and the rich loamy soil that had been undisturbed for ages. It was a place of shadows where the sun struggled to penetrate the dense canopy. The few rays that did manage to break through were weak and fleeting, casting eerie patterns on the forest floor. The silence was broken only by the rustle of unseen creatures and the mournful cry of a distant owl. The sounds seemed to echo, amplifying the sense of isolation and mystery that enveloped the forest. A shiver ran down Thomas's spine. The cold seemed to seep into his bones, making him acutely aware of every sound, every movement around him. He felt a presence here, something watchful and old. It was as if the forest itself had eyes, observing his every move, judging his every step. Thomas pushed deeper into the woods, each step heavier than the last. The ground seemed to pull at his feet as if trying to hold him back, to prevent him from uncovering whatever lay ahead. He was driven by desperation, a thirst for something he couldn't name. It was a compulsion, an unexplainable urge that gnawed at him, pushing him forward despite the fear that gripped his heart. He stumbled over exposed roots, their forms twisted and serpentine in the gloom. Each misstep sent a jolt of pain through his body, but he pressed on, determined to find what he was searching for. The forest felt like a living thing, closing in around him. The trees seemed to lean closer, their branches whispering secrets and warnings that he couldn't quite decipher. A sense of dread coiled in his gut. It was a primal fear, an instinctual response to the unknown dangers that lurked in the shadows. He wasn't meant to be here. The forest was a place of ancient power, a realm that existed outside of time and space, and he was an intruder. He pushed onward, driven by a force he couldn't explain. It was as if something was calling to him, beckoning him deeper into the heart of the forest. The forest seemed to whisper around him, the rustling leaves murmuring secrets he couldn't understand. The sounds were almost hypnotic, lulling him into a trance-like state. His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the oppressive silence. Each beat seemed to echo in his ears, amplifying his sense of urgency and fear. He was lost, he knew, hopelessly lost. The realization hit him like a physical blow, but he couldn't turn back. Something was waiting for him, something he had to find, no matter the cost. Thomas had known better days. Once he had been a man of wealth and status, his life a tapestry of comfort and ease. He had walked the streets with his head held high, his pockets heavy with gold, and his future seemingly secure. His days were filled with laughter, his nights with the finest of company. He had everything a man could desire, and more. But fortune, like a fickle lover, had turned her back on him. It was as if the universe had conspired against him, stripping him of his wealth and status in the blink of an eye. The friends who once flocked to his side vanished, and the woman he loved turned away, leaving him to face his downfall alone. His riches had vanished overnight, his name dragged through the mud. The grand mansion that once stood as a testament to his success now loomed like a ghostly reminder of his failures. The vaults that once overflowed with treasures now lay empty, echoing with the silence of his lost fortune. He had become a ghost, haunting the fringes of his former life. He had lost everything. The bustling streets he once roamed with confidence now seemed foreign and unwelcoming. He wandered aimlessly, a shadow of his former self, invisible to those who once knew his name. His money, his home, his family. The walls of his once vibrant home now stood cold and empty, the laughter of his children replaced by an eerie silence. The family portrait that once hung proudly now seemed a cruel mockery, the faces blurred by the passage of time and the weight of his regrets. All that remained were the gnawing pangs of regret and a desperate yearning for a life that was no more. He clutched his chest, the pain of his losses, a constant reminder of his fall from grace. The old photographs he once cherished now brought only sorrow, each image a painful reminder of what he had lost. He had heard whispers of the forest, ancient tales of a power that resided within its depths. Stories passed down through generations spoke of a mystical force, a hidden magic that could alter the very fabric of reality. It was said that those who were truly desperate could seek out this power, though the journey was fraught with peril, a power that could grant any wish for a price. The tales spoke of a mysterious figure, a guardian of the forest's secrets who held the key to this ancient magic. But the price for such a wish was steep, and few who sought it ever returned. It was a fool's hope, he knew. Yet, in his desperation, even the faintest glimmer of hope seemed worth pursuing. He had nothing left to lose, and the thought of reclaiming even a fraction of his former life was enough to drive him forward. A last, desperate gamble against the cruel hand fate had dealt him. He'd always been a gambler, willing to take risks for the promise of reward. This, however, was the ultimate gamble, one that could either restore his life or end it entirely. But what choice did he have? The crossroads before him represented the final decision, a path that could lead to redemption or ruin. With empty pockets and a heart full of determination, he chose to take the risk, to venture into the unknown. He was a man teetering on the precipice of oblivion, willing to grasp at any sliver of hope, no matter how fantastical. The edge of the cliff symbolized his precarious position, one misstep away from complete destruction. Yet the floating light in the forest called to him, a beacon of possibility in the darkness. The forest had called to him, a siren song of promise and despair. The moonlight illuminated the path, casting eerie shadows that danced with the wind. His heart raced with a mixture of hope and fear, each step a testament to his resolve. He had answered its call, venturing deeper into its shadowy embrace, each step drawing him closer to the unknown. The deeper he went, the more the forest seemed to come alive, whispering secrets and promises that both enticed and terrified him. His breath caught in his throat, a mixture of fear and anticipation. The unknown loomed before him, a vast expanse of possibilities that could either save him or doom him. His heart pounded in his chest, each beat echoing the uncertainty of his journey. Would the forest answer his plea? He knelt in the heart of the forest, his hands clasped in a desperate prayer. The canopy of trees above seemed to listen, the rustling leaves a symphony of nature's response. He looked up, his eyes filled with a glimmer of hope, waiting for a sign, or would it swallow him whole? The darkness of the forest seemed to close in around him, a tangible force that threatened to consume him. As he disappeared into the mist, the forest held its breath, the outcome of his journey hanging in the balance. He stumbled upon it as dusk painted the sky in hues of blood orange and deep violet, a clearing bathed in an unnatural stillness. In the center stood an ancient shrine, crafted from moss-covered stone. It was cold, lifeless, yet it pulsed with an energy that sent shivers down his spine. It felt ancient, older than time itself. He circled the shrine, his hand trembling as he reached out to touch its rough surface. The stone was ice-cold beneath his fingertips, sending a jolt through his body. Inscribed upon its surface were strange symbols, their meaning lost to the ages. They seemed to writhe and shift before his eyes, like serpents coiled in some silent dance. He felt a presence behind him. A chill ran down his spine, raising goosebumps on his arms. He didn't dare turn around. Fear, cold and paralyzing, rooted him to the spot. A voice, ancient and powerful, whispered in his ear. "You seek immortality," the voice rasped, sending shivers down his spine. "But are you prepared for its price?" Thomas turned, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. Standing before him was a figure that defied description. It was neither man nor beast, but something in between. Its eyes, burning like hot coals, seemed to pierce through him, reading the deepest secrets of his soul. Fear threatened to overwhelm him, but a strange sense of calm washed over him. This creature, this being of immense power, held his fate in its hands, and yet he felt no fear, only a strange sense of acceptance. This was it, the moment that would change everything. "What must I give?" he whispered, his voice barely audible above the rustling of leaves. The creature smiled, a chilling, humorless expression that sent shivers down his spine. "Your soul!" the creature hissed, its voice a low growl that seemed to vibrate in Thomas's very bones. "Your soul in exchange for an eternity on this earth!" The early years of his immortality were a whirlwind of experiences. He was like a child in a candy store, eager to taste every flavor life had to offer. He traveled the world, indulging in every pleasure imaginable. He tasted exotic food, scaled towering mountains, and immersed himself in the vibrant cultures of distant lands. He sailed across vast oceans, feeling the salty breeze on his face and the thrill of adventure in his heart. The world was his oyster, and he its eager consumer. He dined in the finest restaurants, stayed in the most luxurious accommodations, and experienced the pinnacle of human achievement. He reveled in his newfound youth, the years rolling off him like water off a duck's back. His energy seemed boundless, his spirit unbreakable. Time, once his enemy, was now his plaything. He watched the sands of the hourglass slip through slowly, savoring each moment as if it were a rare delicacy. He watched empires rise and fall, their grandeur crumbling into dust. He saw the world transform before his eyes, from ancient ruins to modern skyscrapers. He witnessed the birth of nations, the forging of new identities, and the relentless march of progress. He stood at the dawn of new eras, feeling the pulse of history in his veins. He was a silent observer, a phantom moving through the grand tapestry of history. He blended into the background, a ghostly figure in the midst of monumental events. Yet as the decades bled into centuries, he began to feel the weight of his endless journey. The world changed around him, but he remained the same. A strange emptiness began to creep into his heart. The thrill of new experiences dulled, and the pleasures of the flesh lost their allure. He found himself bored in once exciting settings, disinterested in lavish feasts that once brought him joy. The hedonistic scenes that once captivated him now felt hollow. He turned away from them, seeking something deeper, something more meaningful. He was a man out of time, a relic of a bygone era. He stood alone in bustling crowds, feeling the weight of centuries on his shoulders. He was like an antique relic in a modern museum, out of place and out of sync with the world around him. He watched as loved ones aged and withered, their lives flickering out like candles in the wind. He felt the sting of their loss with a profound intensity. Their lives were like candles in the wind, fragile and fleeting. He watched them go one by one, feeling the pain magnified by his own unending existence. He felt the sting of their loss with a profound intensity, the pain magnified by his own unending existence. He clutched old letters and viewed gravestones with tears in his eyes. The pain was a constant companion, a reminder of the price of immortality. He looked out over graveyards, feeling the weight of his eternal life. He was forever on the outside looking in, a detached observer in the relentless march of time. He gazed through windows at happy families, feeling a pang of longing. He was a solitary figure in a bustling city, unnoticed by the people who passed him by. He watched them live their lives, feeling a sense of detachment and isolation.